Anti-World Soldier here, and I am back to talk about Doctor Who Season 13, Episode 1, and my thoughts on this episode. And my thoughts are, what a bloody mess. I mean, wow. This was not a good episode. The fucking CGI was terrible. The main bad guy looked like crap. The other guy was a dog. I mean, not great. And this all comes after all the news that's come in the last couple of months about where Doctor Who's going, with Chibnall finally leaving, Jodie Whittaker also leaving. But we have to remember, because Chibnall's leaving, doesn't mean he hasn't got time to destroy what's left of Doctor Who. Because in this episode, yes, we find out that he's going to definitely keep the Timeless Children as part of the Doctor Who canon. And he's going to make sure he cements that shit in, unfortunately. Even though it was a terrible episode and majority of the Doctor Who fandom hated that shit. But it's Chibnall, he's a little dick cunt, so he's going to continue with this shit, unfortunately. I'm just... There is no hope for Doctor Who. After this episode, I mean... I don't think they know what they're doing with it. They're trying to continue the legacy of long stories. Now, Doctor Who used to be good at doing long stories, but Chibnall isn't. And this story that they're trying to create with this purple guy and the Doctor having this past for each other, I don't really give a shit about it. Because again, it's attached to Timeless Children. So, to tell me a past Doctor, which we all know is going to be a fucking female Doctor that fought this guy across the fucking time, and I'm just not interested. Because you again, the Timeless Children destroyed Doctor Who for me. And many other fans. So, I just don't care about this character anymore. I don't care about this bad guy anymore. And this episode, the biggest problem I think with this episode, because I haven't really gone into it, but there's too much going on. You're trying to introduce this massive bad guy to the show, whilst bringing in the Angels, whilst bringing in some random guy called Victor. You're bringing in too much for the first episode. Like, fucking calm it down. Concentrate on this bad guy you've introduced, or concentrate on the fucking Flux. You know, I would say a good writer, a great writer could do this, but not Chris Chibnall. Because he's fucking shit at his job. So this episode had too much in it, and it just took so much away from what was, I think, the main story, which was the Flux. But there again, too much is crammed into this episode for it to make sense or to even be good. And I'm just gonna say, having just Yaz and the Doctor, yeah, it doesn't really work, you know, because I guess they're trying to go with a lesbian theme, but when you watch this episode, it's just really hollow, and I don't know, they seem more like friends. But if you listen to the new Doctor Who fans, Yaz is taking up the arse from the Doctor. But yeah, and adding John Bishop into this series, I don't care. I mean, John Bishop is not a fantastic actor. He's a fucking comedian. And he doesn't bring that much to this fucking episode either. There's nothing here. There's no pluses. There's no great storytelling. Bringing up Timeless Children, again, it's a fucking disaster to do that. And if people want to complain to me and say, well, that's not true, Doctor Who's doing fine, Chris Chibnall would not be leaving if it was doing okay. Neither would Jodie Whittaker. Okay? The Doctor Who franchise is in the shit. And if we're going to keep getting episodes like this, it's going to continue to be in the shit. I am not asking for much. I mean, I can at least say from the last season, at least some of the stories made sense. This one is just, there's just too much crammed into it. Terrible episode. Terrible CGI. Bad guy doesn't really come off as a bad guy wearing a stupid suit. Blah. But yeah, just don't bother. If you're a Doctor Who fan, stop watching Doctor Who, because Jesus, it's a dead franchise, and there's just not enough skilled people. And I know they're bringing the guy back who did the first season of New Who, but when you see what he's got to work with, well, you got to see what he's got to rescue. And I know his name is escaping me right now, and I'll try to remember it in the future, but Christ. Like, the only way to fix this is to get rid of the Time of Children. To say that was all a bunch of bullshit. But Chris Chibnall is just not going to let that happen. He's going to keep it in this series for the amount of time he stays with it. So just don't watch this episode. Stop watching Doctor Who, because it is just shit now. So I'll go into the spoiler section of this review, and my score for this episode I'm going to give like a -1 out of 10, because it was just stupid all the way through. So the spoiler section is, so we start off the episode with Yaz and the Doctor tied up on this floating thing with this bounty hunter looking guy, you know, setting a trap for the Doctor. The Doctor walks straight into it. Yaz and the Doctor have an argument. Then the Doctor manages to break free from the cuffs, and then says Allons-y, because again, Jodie Whittaker has to copy David Tennant, because Chris Chibnall cannot do any fucking amount of his own work. Just copy from a better Doctor and a better writer and hope to God Jodie Whittaker can pull it off. Like, no, she can't. She really can't pull off Doctor Who. Okay, she's terrible at it. The Doctor manages to escape the cuffs, says Allons-y, flies away on this fucking floating thing. It cracks. Yaz and the Doctor are getting chased by these drones firing at them. Terrible shots, by the way, for drones. They manage to find the TARDIS. They drop into the TARDIS and they get away unharmed. Then we go to Liverpool, where we're in the 1980s or the 1890s or something, and this guy is digging a hole. We don't really know why, but he then bumps into another like rich person who asks him why is he digging here, and they have this massive fight with who's got the bigger brain. The guy doesn't really get explained what he's doing there, so why put this in this episode? Why not explain why we're in Liverpool in the 1800s and explain that? Why not explain that? You didn't explain it. Anyway, so we go there for like 2 seconds. We then go to modern day Liverpool, where John Bishop is leading a bunch of people around a museum to talk about Liverpool history. Turns out it doesn't work there. He just does that for fun for some reason, because yeah, that's what blokes do for fun, lead people around museums. Anyway, John Bishop gets sent out by some woman he likes. They arrange a date with each other, but she has to tell him stop, taking people for guiding tours, because that's not your job. And they have this awkward couple moment where they try to make a date with each other. Then John Bishop goes to his real job, which is a food bank. And I get it. They're trying to bring up the whole food bank situation in the UK. Fine. I mean, I donate as much as I can to it. Yes, it is a problem. Kind of really, kind of a bit surprised they didn't go as, political with that. They did go political with the bank thing with John Bishop's character when he goes home and he hasn't got any food in his house. Like, okay, I mean, if you're gonna go political with it, go fucking political with it. Just do it like 100 times better than that. Anyway, so John Bishop's at this food bank. He refuses to take soup home because somebody else might need it. Like, John, just take the fucking soup home. I have been hungry in my life. I used to be food poor. I used to be very poor when I was a kid. Like, when you grow up like that, you don't refuse food. You never do that. So John Bishop I know they're trying to say, like, he's being all manly, not taking the food. It's like, if a man's hungry, if a man knows he hasn't got food in his house, he's going to take a little bit home with him. Like, I know people that work at food banks. If you work there, you can take food home if you need it. They're not fucking vultures. They're not going to say you can't take anything. It's only for the public. If you need food, a food bank will help you. So, I just thought it was a stupid scene for him to say no. Anyway, the woman he's working with, he did some crap with some trick-or-treaters, gave him some sweets, blah, 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 blah. This is at the food bank, not at his house. The woman he works with sees a drone pass, but it goes like by a second. John doesn't really see it, so he just thinks she's seeing things. John then heads home. He heads home. Trick-or-treaters come to his house. He gives them sweets. Like, again, you need food. Why are you giving these kids sweets if you need food? I mean, again, it was just a stupid scene. Anyway, so this bit, I will give this episode credit. There was a scene I liked, and it was the blatantly 38-year-old man who comes to his door and says trick or treat. And I thought that was funny because, you do get that in the UK. Like, a random older person comes to your door thinking that they can get away with the trick or treat shit, not wearing a costume. Like, that shit does happen. And it's really weird to deal with. It's like, you're obviously not a fucking kid and you're obviously not trying. So, fuck off. And then it just made me laugh because I have dealt with that sort of situation when somebody came to my flat doing that shit. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, you're not a trick-or-treater. You're obviously too old to be doing this. Fuck off. Anyway, John Bishop sends him home and tells him not to egg his house because he has to have beer and eggs with him. And, who the fuck knows? Anyway, so John Bishop goes back in his house, and then the bounty hunter we see in the first part of the episode breaks in the door with his hammer, then has a chat with, then threatens John Bishop. They have an argument. He takes off his mask, and he's a fucking dog. And I burst out laughing because, Jesus, it looks so fucking bad. Oh my god. Like, I don't know if they're trying to do some sort of Wookiee rip-off with this character, but my god. It was just the dumbest fucking scene for him to take off his helmet and to get the dog reveal, because it was, and we find out why that this is important in the end of the episode. But my god, what the fuck? It's just a terrible character. I mean, what the fuck was that? Anyway, the dog he puts John Bishop in a cage, takes him back up to his ship. We then get a doctor arriving in Liverpool, goes to the house, trying to see what's happened. The house then gets beamed somewhere else because, the doctor goes into the house, uses the computer that John Bishop has, figures out that there's a massive fleet of these dog people coming to Earth, and she thinks it's an invasion. So the doctor plans to try and stop it, but figures out, hold on, how does John Bishop, a person who lives in this house, afford expensive computers like this. So the Doctor realizes it's a trap, runs out the house then disappears somewhere else. And then when the Doctor tries to head back to the TARDIS, we meet some woman who, basically, this is a future meets past episode. And again, better writers, better directors have done this so much better. This scene just seems so really awkward, and it who cares? This Sharon, I think that's her name, Sharon person comes up to try to talk to the Doctor, tries to talk to Yaz. It pretty much is. It's just an awkward moment. She knows she can't really talk to them because she's their future, and I mean she's their part. Well, no, they're her past. She's their future, so she can't muck around with that. So she has to leave. The same scene is then she leaves and gets chased. I'm gonna do the fucking angel scene because it's just a quick scene that didn't really need to be in this episode. So she's getting chased by a angel. Now, yes, the angels used to be like one of the scariest Doctor Who villains in Doctor Who lore, because it was a terrifying episode. I watched it when I was a kid, and I think Doctor Who has overused the angels a lot. So, unfortunately, the angels don't seem scary anymore. They seem a bit. They're just boring now. They've just been overused way too much in Doctor Who. They're just like the Daleks now. They're just enemies you know how to beat. And in the same scene, she says, "Don't blink," and it's like, yes, everybody who's watching this right now knows the fucking don't blink shit. You don't need to tell us that. Okay? You don't need to tell us that because we've seen it about 100 fucking times. And that line has been said 100 fucking times in Doctor Who. We know the rules. But she gets caught by the angel. She gets sent back in the past because, again, that's the angel's weapon. They take away your future and put you in the past. Where were we now? Oh yeah, so the Doctor chases after the dog and manages to shut off his security system with a crisp bag, and then manages to take control of the ship. Well, no, she turns off the ship and traps the dog and turns off all his weapons. Whilst Yaz goes and frees John Bishop from the cage. She then questions the dog about what's happening, why has he come to Earth, and he tells her it's the flux, it's destroying the universe, and they need to save humanity because they're man's best friend. Funny, ha ha ha, who gives a shit? So there's an alien race running to rescue humanity, and that's why they've sent a massive armada of ships. At the same point, the flux is now boosting out, and we then meet, or at least we get shown, Victor, who is some commander on a satellite who's, I don't know, viewing the area. I mean, he wasn't really that much explained. He's just viewing the area. Then the flux happens. It starts destroying planet after planet after planet. And then the flux starts chasing after him. Before this, we find this main bad guy, from the Doctor's past. He's imprisoned in this thing at the beginning of the universe, and this woman and this other woman go over there to try and make sure that he's secured safely. The woman in charge says, "Don't speak to the prisoner," and then goes on to speak to the fucking prisoner all the fucking time, so what the fuck. But the prisoner manages to escape the cell, sucks the life out of the prison guard leader, and then kills the other prison guard leader after that. The weapons they had looked like fucking children's weapons. Again, Doctor used to be able to make great looking weapons, but unfortunately that was a different time. Oh, Jesus, this episode is so shit. Anyway, so the Doctor and the dog start trying to work together to save humanity, but then John Bishop shouts at the dog, and then the Doctor realises the ship's coming back online. The weapon system's coming back online. So Yaz, the Doctor, and John Bishop run back to the TARDIS, get away from the dog. They then try to go find where this flux is. Doctor comes to where the point of where the flux is, doesn't understand what the hell is going on, and then the flux comes into view. She then gets this vision with the bad guy from her past, and he tells her that this is us. We've been fighting for such a long time, and that he has an advantage now because he remembers the fights they had and she doesn't, pretty much trying to make sure that the Timeless Children is solidified into Doctor Who lore, which is a bad idea for Doctor Who in the future. He also frees his sister, who turns out to be a prisoner on Earth with a human identity, and I think that was another Doctor plan or trap or something. Not a trap, a safeguard to keep. Didn't want to kill the sister, but didn't want the sister to go off and try to rescue her brother, so she probably gave her a human identity. Fine, but the bad guy finds his sister, frees her from her imprisonment, and they go off together and grab John Bishop's girlfriend, and I think they're going to start torturing her for some reason. Don't know why, that just happened in the episode. And the episode ends with the Doctor working with the dog people to protect her from the flux, or at least that's what they were trying to do at the end. The dog people surround the Earth, put it in a protective shield. When the flux comes, the Doctor then hammers the TARDIS, because that's what David Tennant did in his series. So, of course, Jodie Whittaker being the blatant copy, not blatant copy, but as it is, that she has to copy a better Doctor to see if that makes the Doctor Who fans like her, to smack the TARDIS with a hammer to make it work. Oh, and apparently Yaz now knows how to work the TARDIS, even though the Doctor has said on many occasions humans can't work a TARDIS, but apparently she can. And then the episode ends on a cliffhanger. Oh, and the Sontarans turned up in a scene for some reason. Like, this episode hasn't got too much in it. Let's just throw the Sontarans in just for good measure. And by the way, why are you bringing back the really old Sontaran look? Like, we have a new Sontaran look, which is actually good look. You know, the purple uniform looked alright. Why are you changing it to the old version when nobody asked you to do that? And I know I've heard the rumours about the Sontarans because they're all a male species, but that would be too sexist to females, so they're going to try to introduce female Sontarans, even though it doesn't make sense because they don't need females because they're a cloned race that, they get born like that. They don't need women for that. They're a warrior race. They have only men. But again, too sexist for these days. I don't know. It just seemed very unnecessary to have the Sontarans in this episode. Why not just throw them in the next episode, which they did, and just concentrate the Sontarans on that episode? Why bring them in this one? Who fucking knows? And then the episode ends on a cliffhanger. And that was it. Way too much in this episode. Should have cut out a lot. Should have concentrated on the flux and had the cliffhanger be this bad guy comes out at the end. But what am I thinking? It's Chris Chibnall. He's not good at his job. Thought it was a bad episode. The future Doctor Who does not look good. They really do need to fucking fix this as soon as he's gone. They need to get rid of the Timeless Children. That has to be done. But I really do doubt they're going to do that. And that's my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this review, give it a dislike. And do comment below if you think that I'm right about Timeless Children, or if you actually do think the Timeless Children is actually a good episode. I would like to see that person, because I need to understand how the fuck you can think that's even right. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. Hail about the Phantom Menace, long live CG, fuck SJWs. Bye.